The East Coast actually packs more people per square mile than almost anywhere else in America, which surprises a lot of folks who picture it as some kind of sparse, spread-out region. This misunderstanding shows how we really don't grasp where Americans actually choose to live, and it highlights just how incredibly crowded our eastern seaboard has become. When you look at where people actually live in the United States, the East Coast dominates the conversation. NASA's population density research shows that the most jam-packed parts of America sit east of the Mississippi River, with these distinct rings of decreasing density spreading outward from major cities. The East Coast anchors this entire pattern, especially in what experts call the Northeast Corridor. This corridor represents one of North America's most incredible examples of urban concentration. It stretches from Boston down through New York, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C., cramming tens of millions of Americans into a surprisingly compact area. The density here doesn't just impress by American standards, it competes with the most crowded regions anywhere on the planet. Here's what makes the East Coast such a people magnet. New York alone stuffs over 8 million people into just 300 square miles across its 5 boroughs. That works out to roughly 27,000 people per square mile within city limits. Expand that to include the greater metropolitan area, and you're talking about over 20 million people living within commuting distance of Manhattan. New York is just the crown jewel, though. Philadelphia, with its metropolitan area of over 6 million people, sits just 90 miles southwest. Washington, D.C. anchors the southern end with its own metropolitan population exceeding 6 million. These 3 cities, plus Boston to the north, create this almost continuous band of urban and suburban development that houses roughly 1 in 6 Americans. The numbers get even more mind-blowing when you zoom in on individual states. New Jersey holds the title as the nation's most densely populated state, cramming an incredible 1,207 people into every square mile. If the entire United States had New Jersey's population density, we'd be housing over 3 billion people. Massachusetts follows close behind with 884 people per square mile, making it the second most crowded state. These density figures didn't happen by accident. The East Coast's population concentration stems from centuries of economic, political, and cultural forces that keep drawing people to the region. The area's deep natural harbors made it the primary gateway for European immigration for over 3 centuries. Cities like New York, Boston, and Philadelphia became processing points for millions of immigrants who often stuck around rather than heading inland. The concentration of economic opportunities along the East Coast created this self-reinforcing growth cycle. As more businesses set up shop in these urban centers to tap into large labor pools and consumer markets, even more people moved to the area hunting for jobs. This pattern continues today, with the Northeast Corridor serving as headquarters for numerous Fortune 500 companies and hosting some of the world's most important financial markets. Educational institutions also play a huge role in maintaining the East Coast's population density. The region hosts an extraordinary concentration of prestigious universities and colleges. Harvard, MIT, Yale, Princeton, Columbia, and the University of Pennsylvania represent just a few of the institutions that draw students from around the world. Many of these students stick around after graduation, contributing to a highly educated workforce that attracts even more businesses and institutions. Washington, D.C.'s political significance can't be overstated in understanding East Coast population patterns. As the seat of federal government, the capital region employs hundreds of thousands of people directly in government roles, with hundreds of thousands more working for contractors, lobbying firms, think tanks, and other organizations that cluster around political power. This creates a massive economic engine that pulls people from across the country. Transportation infrastructure has shaped and reinforced population density along the East Coast too. The region boasts some of the most comprehensive public transportation networks in the United States. The New York City subway system alone carries over 5 million passengers daily. Amtrak's Northeast Corridor provides high-speed rail connections between major cities, while extensive highway networks facilitate movement throughout the region. When you compare the East Coast to other regions of the United States, the contrast becomes striking. The West Coast certainly has its own population centers, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Seattle, but these are more isolated pockets of density, separated by vast stretches of less populated territory. The East Coast's uniqueness lies in how its major population centers blend together into this almost continuous urban landscape. The interior of the United States presents a completely different pattern. Cities like Chicago, Atlanta, Houston, and Dallas serve as major population centers, but they're surrounded by much larger areas of lower density. The Great Plains, Mountain West, and much of the interior West maintain those low population densities that many people mistakenly associate with the entire United States. This concentration of population along the East Coast has profound implications for American politics, economics, and culture. The region's voting power influences national elections. Its economic output drives much of the country's GDP, and its cultural institutions shape American intellectual and artistic life. The concentration of major media organizations in New York, political institutions in Washington, and educational powerhouses throughout the corridor means that East Coast perspectives often get amplified in national discourse. This density also creates unique challenges, though. Housing costs in East Coast metropolitan areas rank among the highest in the nation. Traffic congestion is legendary, with commutes that can stretch for hours. Environmental pressures from concentrating so many people in relatively small areas strain infrastructure and natural resources. The contrast between perception and reality regarding East Coast population distribution reflects broader misconceptions about American geography. Many people visualize the United States as uniformly spread with population, but reality is far more concentrated. Roughly half of all Americans live in just 9 states, and a significant portion of those states' populations cluster in urban areas. Understanding the true nature of East Coast population distribution helps explain many aspects of American life that might otherwise seem puzzling. Why do East Coast cities have such extensive public transportation when most American cities don't? Because the population density makes it economically viable and practically necessary. Why do East Coast real estate prices seem so disconnected from prices in other regions? Because millions of people compete for limited space in desirable locations. The East Coast's population density also explains its outsized influence on American culture and politics. When you concentrate tens of millions of people in a relatively small geographic area, you create conditions for intense cultural and economic activity. Ideas spread quickly, businesses can access large markets efficiently, and cultural institutions can draw from massive talent pools. So rather than being an area where few Americans live, the East Coast represents the exact opposite, a region where Americans have concentrated themselves more densely than almost anywhere else in the country. This concentration tells the story of American development, from colonial ports to modern megalopolis, and continues to shape the nation's future as millions more people call this crowded corner of America home. The East Coast stands as proof of the human tendency to cluster together, creating the dense urban environments that drive innovation, culture, and economic growth, while challenging us to balance the benefits of concentration with the costs of crowding.